Hey, how you doing? Hope you all are doing great. As you've seen in the thumbnail, in this video, we're going to see Naruto got inot harem with Karin and Sakura. This is movie. Before getting into video, I request you to check the author of this fanfic and show some love and support. Name of the story is The Renegade Generation by Dry Genesis. Do check it out. All details in description. Let's get into the video. Also check out Patreon for uncensored spicy content. Link in description. It was a peaceful morning in Konoha, sun brightly shining and not a cloud in sight. After passing their genin exams, Naruto and his class were set to attend high school. For within the village, all students were required to attend the high school to attain a proper education. So if the incident arose that they could no longer be ninja, the students could have a career to fall back on. Entry into the academy was guaranteed for all who passed the genin exams. The sizable campus had many amenities to facilitate the development of the skills of the students, with clubs that would focus on honing specific techniques to help bring out the potential of the students. 8 wings made up the academy, formed into a circle, with a central courtyard designed to represent the inyan. The wings of the academy were constructed intentionally to be in the form of the 8 trigrams. All this was due to an effort to bring together differing elements that serve the village. Those who received their initial training within the village's primary academies, and those who were brought up in what was known simply as the temple. Ultimately, the guiding principle of the academy was to bring about harmony of the warrior and civilian paths, and this was the reason for the architecture reflected a symbol that reflects finding harmony. The students filed into the courtyard of the academy. Many quickly made their ways to the bulletin boards to find out which classes they were assigned to. Many were celebrating to know that they would be with their friends, while others were dismayed to find out they would be in classes with people they couldn't stand. The uniforms for the academy had 2 standards. The boys dressed in a white dress shirt with red tie and black dress pants. As for the girls, their uniforms consisted of a white dress shirt, red plaid skirt, and tie. There was some deviation from student to student, some not wearing the tie. Others had a vest or a blazer to accessorize the style of their uniform within reason, that is. Among those students checking their class assignments was Haruno Sakura. She dressed in almost standard variation of a uniform, except she decided to forego the tie and chose a red dress shirt. She was in the process of checking class assignment. Her emerald green eyes shone with elation as she saw she was in the same class as Uchiha Sasuke. That was until she noticed who else was in her class, and her jubilation quickly disappeared. There was only one thing that would bring such a feeling of terror to the young girl. Billboard brow. You thought you'd get Sasuke-kun all to yourself, didn't you? Loudly spoke a platinum-haired girl as she stood behind Sakura, none other than Sakura's rival, Yamanaka Ino. She dressed similarly to Sakura, only with a white dress shirt and black knee socks being the key difference. Oh, shut it, Ino pig. It isn't all about you. I can deal with you anytime. I just can't deal with you while being hit on by Naruto all the time, exclaimed the pink-haired Kunoichi, frustrated with the fact she would have to still deal with a boy who in her mind just wouldn't take the hint. Of course, not realizing the irony that it was a fast-growing cycle of unrequited love all around. Ino smirked broadly and loudly declared, "Sounds like you have the problem. Naruto thankfully doesn't like me, which means Sasuke-kun will be all mine. I could tell him you actually think he's cute, you know?" Dryly Sakura replied, her eyes narrowed in annoyance, using a threat to even the playing field once again. "You wouldn't," complained the blonde Kunoichi in horror at the thought of that premise happening, her face showing abject and utter horror as she realized more and more her pink-haired nemesis would do exactly that, and grumbled, "You would." "Exactly, so if you try any of her dirty tricks, I have an ace up my sleeve," warned the pink-haired Kunoichi with a devilish glint in her eyes, although she was probably playing more deviously than Ino would ever consider doing. Possibly. The normally beautiful Kunoichi began emitting an aura so demonic it seemed like she was shrouded in miasma. "Oh yeah, 2 can play this game. I hear that one of our senpai is a total lunatic. Maybe I should tell him he's your type," declared Ino, returning fire with great ambition burning in her eyes. Of course, in the heat of the moment, she neglected that she didn't know who this infamous senpai was, only that he was unusual, possibly crazy. She didn't need much in the way of facts to go on at this moment. She was on a mission of love, shallow love that would be doomed to fail, but love nonetheless. You don't even know his name. So, my cousin does. And as soon as I know who he is, he will be your future husband. Maybe I will direct him towards you. Maybe he has a thing for stupid blondes. Stupid. At least I don't have a forehead so big you can project movies on it. The two kunoichi bickering began to draw the attention of the other students, mostly because they were shocked by the oddity of the fighting that they were witnessing. Even more so the intensity that they were arguing, because it could go bad at any moment if things got too out of hand. That was until something else got the attention of the many students that were gathered. Today is the day that I begin my fated rise to Hokage. And my first goal is to take over the student council. Boldly Naruto declared as he stood in front of one of the bulletin boards, striking what he thought was a heroic pose with his index finger pointed towards the Hokage monument. He dressed in the required uniform, but with the dress shirt unbuttoned and untucked, wearing an orange t-shirt underneath. This declaration didn't fall on deaf ears. Not that anyone could ignore that announcement as loud as the boy was. Rather, many of the second-year and third-year students were either complaining that they lost money or that this isn't going to end well. I don't think they heard you in the Kumoga Kira Naruto. Why do you have to be so obnoxious about it? This is such a drag, complained Shikamaru, dressed in a similar lazy manner to Naruto. Only his t-shirt was black, his voice carrying all the irritation of such a horrible and loud declaration of war on the existing student council. He then dryly added, "We haven't even been here a day, and you're determined to begin picking fights with people we should probably avoid. The student council is probably some honor student who couldn't win a fight," barked Naruto as he went through his mocking actions, trying his best to portray, through charades, his idea of a boring honor student. Honor student? Ha 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 ha. No. Unable to win a fight. Ha ha. I can't wait for Garu and Shireza to hear that. It's just so precious how you new kids think, interjected a second-year student, his almost condescending amusement echoing throughout the courtyard. While most students either wore the bare minimum of a school uniform or even the standard, he took it up a notch, a three-piece suit. He dressed in with a red dress shirt, black tie, black vest, and black dress pants. His long black hair was neatly tied back, while his face bore the features prominent within the Nara clan, a constant look of boredom and laziness that couldn't be matched. "Hey Roku, let me guess the student council president is your designated idiot friend like this loudmouth is for me," replied Shikamaru, showing some annoyance at the predicament they were in already, having hoped to fly below the radar long enough to get used to high school. "Hey, who are you calling an idiot, Shikamaru?" complained the blonde genin. Taking aspersion to being called an idiot, it was rather annoying to him to be called out on his foolish behavior. Because you intend to piss off people right away and no doubt drag us into it with you. Nah, the student council president is kind of laid back. Well, that isn't true. Last year was one hell of a year, but it's not my job to protect you kids, warned Roku as he walked away content with his vague warnings. "Oh gee, thanks for the warning. I can only imagine Kaseiji is running bets on this. Isn't she?" queried Shikamaru with one eyebrow raised, not liking the ominous threat regarding the student council president and his behavior. "Well, yeah, when isn't she? She's still running bets on you," sarcastically replied the older Nara as he walked away, keeping quiet that he had some money riding on a few outcomes that he was sure would happen regardless if he had helped protect them from things that would likely unfold under the right circumstances. "Oh great, we got another cocky loudmouth. That's my thing. Except I can back up everything I say," grumbled an irritated voice from the steps leading into the campus courtyard, which drew the attention of all the students in attendance as he gradually came into view. His messy, spiky silver hair made him look as if he just woke from bed. It was neither short nor was it long by any scope of the imagination as it reached the middle of his neck, some of the hair haphazardly falling in his face. His eyes just spoke of danger, bearing a striking resemblance to those of a wolf down to the color. A smug and wild grin was his constant expression. His variation of the uniform was a white dress shirt, black tie, a red vest, black dress pants, with a red and white fur lined coat draped over his shoulders. Physically, he was of a lean, muscular build. He had some muscle mass, but in terms he was built like he was designed to move fast, yet he had a fair amount of muscle mass, so he could strike when he needed to. Remind me again why I have to dress like I work in a host club? I swear once I get out of school, I ain't wearing sleeves. Ever. YHHHHHHHHHHHVR again. Complained the silver-haired boy, his face showing heavy dissatisfaction with his current mode of attire. This complaint he broadcasted heavily suggested that perhaps he was more prone to wearing a more casual style of clothing. Because Jinshin, you're the student council president. Why you were elected still defies my imagination, but it's clear you ran because you're a moron. Furthermore, why do you insist on wearing that thing? You look like you have some delusions. Oh, right, I forgot who I'm talking to. Came a sharp reply of a dark-haired kunoichi, her white eyes making it clear she was born of the Hyuga line. Her sharp manner of speaking was only matched by the intense gaze of her eyes. Her black hair was styled into a harem cut, with the length braided into 2 braids that trailed down her back. Her body was slender and more of an athletic build, with a smaller bust perhaps comparable to that of certain kunoichi. Oh, come on, Hitaru. You know you love that about me. With a playful grin, Jinshin replied as he turned and walked backwards in high spirits, enjoying his morning so far. Idiot, was the simple reply from the stoic white-eyed girl, only faintly blushing as her eyes darted off to the side, with a faint smile on her face. Watching the two enter the plaza, Ino's eyes lit up with excitement, and when she saw the newcomers, a dynamic that she couldn't help but notice. Of course, her eyes were fixated on the silver-haired boy for the most part. With a playful glint in her cornflower blue eyes lit up with mischief, as she playfully glanced over at Sakura and quickly grasped hold of her shoulders and pushed her straight towards the silver-haired boy. Wah! Ino, what are you dash? The pink-haired kunoichi tried to argue, but it was too late, and in an attempt to maintain her balance, she ran forward unaware where she was going. It's a good morning, though I do feel I forgot to do something. It'll sort itself out. Jinshin happily said, unaware of what was about to come his way, which instantly became clear as he turned around and saw the pink-haired girl lunging towards him. He could have easily stepped out of her way, but instead he allowed the collision. Perhaps he was being a gentleman, but the odds were he was thinking he could meet another attractive girl, because he had that kind of reputation. As she collided with him, her face ended up buried within his chest. Upon realizing she had come to a complete stop, she shyly glanced upward, her cheeks tinged bright red, only for them to become flusher as her eyes met with his. Her heart was beating heavily in both embarrassment at the situation she was in, but also because she found this boy she didn't even know to be so striking. Are you okay? He calmly asked as he placed his hands on her shoulders, doing his best to help her regain her bearings. He was if one thing someone who actually cared about others not wanting to see bad things happen to them. Well, that isn't true, but that was the old Jinshin, not the new reformed Jinshin. Why, just my stupid friend pushed me over here. I don't normally run straight into boys I don't know. Is that what happened? Just glad you're okay, was the simple reply he gave as smiled gently at her. He knew he had one chance to make a good impression on her. Of course, he also knew it wouldn't last long, because he was who he was. He then went on to speak, casually saying, as far as awkward meetings go, nice to meet ya. I'm Jinketsu Jinshin, student council president. Not every day I have a cute girl crash into me. So in all, it's a good day. I'm Haruno Sakura. This is my first day. Did you just call me cute? Of course. Why wouldn't I? It'd be a lie if I said otherwise. Olala Sakura has a new boyfriend. Ino called out from across the courtyard, much to the chagrin of Sakura, who became annoyed at such comments. Is that your friend? Coolly he inquired as he glanced towards the noisy girl, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, that's her, sighed Sakura as she hanged her head in exasperation. She's kinda cute, kinda noisy too, though what she's saying is flattering, said the Jinketsu heir with a satisfied grin on his face, actually liking the inference. Of course, he'd probably be happy with any suggestion he was a girl's boyfriend. Narrowing her eyes in offense, and some jealousy that he could call Ino cute, she angrily said, Humph. Now being called cute means nothing, and don't get any ideas, Jinshin senpai. I kinda like someone already. Also, I barely know you. And I was gonna introduce you to Mom. Sardonically, he replied with a satirical smirk on his face, teasing her about it, just a little. Don't be a smartass. Of course, this scene didn't go unnoticed. Naruto's right. I twitched uncontrollably as anger and jealousy overtook his normally irrational thought processes, resulting in him being more incensed than he normally would be. Clenching his fists, a dark aura overtook him as he began to stomp towards Jinshin and Sakura, intending to do something about it. He saw enough. The fact the two were gazing into one another's eyes was enough to set him off into a jealous fury. "Naruto, come on. Please not right now," reasoned Shikamaru, knowing this wasn't going to end well. But he wasn't about to make the effort to hold Naruto back because it would be pointless. He knew his cousin Kaseiji probably figured this would happen and was running bets on it. "No, that guy's asking for an ass kicking, hitting on my Sakura-chan so casually. I hate him already," bellowed Naruto as he sprinted forward, readying himself to attack as he had his right fist chambered to his side to unleash havoc on the offending party. "I'm telling you it won't end. Well, and the idiot is already gone. What a drag." But just as he reached his target, 2 feet planted themselves right into his face and sent him flying throughout the courtyard, bouncing across the stones as if he were a stone tossed across the water's surface. A female voice angrily shouted one thing, and that was Onii-chan. Oddly, all that was missing from the scene was a voice saying a new challenger appears. Skillfully landing right next to Jinshin and Sakura was a young woman who had the most unusual that looked like a terrible dye job. Her hair began as blonde and had a gradient transitioning into orange and then red as you reached the tips. It was loosely braided into a solitary braid that trailed down to the middle of her back. Her bangs framed the sides of her face, neatly held out of her face with some ornate hair clips that looked like phoenix feathers. Her azure blue eyes took an almost innocent shape. Of course, that was hard to tell when she was glaring with fierce anger. She had dressed almost similarly to Sakura, only her dress shirt was sleeveless, which was due to the fact she had Miko-like sleeves on her arms. Additionally, she wore black knee socks. "Areka," was the startled reply of the silver-haired shinobi as he was shocked by the arrival of the young kunoichi, who he clearly knew, and that is when it all dawned on him as a sheepish grin crossed his visage, and he shamefully said, "I promised to walk you to school. That's right. And when I get here and find you flirting with this flat-chested whore." Flat-chested whore? That's big talk coming from a dye job slut. Huh. This is natural. Oh. Could it be you're actually just jealous because I actually have breasts? Don't worry, puberty should come to you sooner or later. Oh. Never mind. It seems you were just cursed with those mosquito bites. What? At least I have an athletic body. Those clunky things probably throw you off balance all the time. Not again. Why does this shit always happen to me? Thought Jinshin as he could quickly see things were going to go downhill fast. He began to try sneaking away only for the 2 kunoichi to grab him by the arms. A look of sheer terror took to his face. He didn't fear too much, but he knew one thing. Never piss off women because they're insane. His eye began twitching as fear and panic took over, the color quickly draining from his face as he knew his day was about to become a living hell, and fast. "Senpai, tell the dye job whore to back off. Jin and I, please explain to this girl with the body of a boy, not to mention personality, that we have a special bond. I want to stay out of this. Why both look pretty?" Sheepishly, Jinshin answered rhetorically, unsure of what to say to be honest, and knowing that no matter what he said, he would get beaten up. Of course, he didn't say anything he would regret in the next. 10 seconds give or take. The 2 kunoichi turned their attention to him with fierce and intimidating glares aimed directly at him. Veins were clearly visible in their foreheads as their anger was aimed directly at him. The twitching of his eye became much more frequent as he knew he was about to suffer a terrible fate. "Senpai, the moron," angrily Sakura shouted as she stomped on his foot and began unleashing furious chain of punches into his solar plexus. The punches with each blow became harder until she executed a fierce uppercut, knocking him into the sky. Of course, his punishment wasn't done yet, as the blonde kunoichi flew into the sky, executing a flurry of well-placed kicks, mostly aimed at his ribs. The flurry continued to mount up until the young girl's legs disappeared into a blinding flurry, almost as if her leg was becoming like metal that had reached its melting point. That's when she executed a step-up enzwajairi, which connected with his head and sent him crashing downward into the ground. She then furiously shouted, "Jin and I, you jerk." Ugh. Embarrassing, the next Hokage got his ass totally kicked by some girl. "I will never live this one down," angrily Naruto shouted as he slowly got to his feet, only to be knocked flat on his ass once again when a senpai he was going to pick a fight with crashed right into him. It was worth it. Jinshin managed to wheeze out before he collapsed onto the ground. Glancing to his left, he saw Naruto knocked down and casually said, "Ya okay, kid? Yeah, don't worry about me. I can heal pretty good. What about you? You're probably not doing too well. I've been on the receiving end of Sakura-chan's anger before. On top of that, you got kicked around by that cute blonde," replied Naruto, having some minor respect for anyone who could take a beating from Sakura like that. Don't worry about me. Small perk of being related to two of the dead idiots carved on that mountain. Casually Jinshin replied as he formed a hand seal and shrouded his body in a steel blue aura. His body quickly began to repair any damage he suffered. A fox-like grin took to Naruto's face as he jumped to his feet and loudly declared, "Good. Then I don't have to feel bad about kicking your ass for hitting on my Sakura-chan. Man, you gotta get your priorities in order." In an exasperated tone, Jinshin responded as he stood to his feet and began to walk away. After collecting his coat, he slipped his arms through the sleeves and casually walked away, nonchalantly commenting, "You want to be Hokage, but you're flapping your lips? Honestly, right now, I'm closer to being a leader than you are. A leader doesn't seek to fight. A leader, well, leads by example. Also, Sakura ain't yours. She's a lady. Treat her with some respect, or you'll have me to deal with. It's one thing to not give up on a girl, but try not to annoy her. Besides, fighting over a girl is immature, don't you think? Don't talk like you're already her boyfriend, just cause you two got along for a few moments," barked Naruto as he clenched his fists, not liking the tone of this guy. He didn't like his attitude. It was pissing him off more than anything Sasuke could do. I told ya, she isn't yours, so don't be pulling this alpha male shit with me. All ladies deserve to be treated with respect because it's the most badass thing we can do," declared the student council president as his eyes narrowed in agitation and an aura of killing intent began to emanate from him. And he spoke once more with some hostility in his voice. "Treat her with respect, or I'll teach you the meaning of fear." "Got it. I did like Sakura. She seemed nice, but I ain't about to fight over her. Getting involved in petty shit ain't my style. More trouble than it's worth. I don't need more hurdles as I try to change who I am from who I was," mused Jinshin as he continued to walk away, until he encountered Roku and two other individuals. The first was a towering and imposing man, bearing the two Fong markings on his face highlighting his link to the Inuzuka clan. His hair was of chestnut brown, cut into a mohawk, the hair indiscriminately resting in whichever way it wanted to go. The sides of his head weren't shaved, rather just clipped short. His uniform was practical, if anything, wearing only an unbuttoned white dress shirt, with a black t-shirt underneath and black dress pants. His build was strikingly like that of an enforcer or perhaps a bouncer. He towered over the other three, whom weren't short, but his presence made them seem diminutive. The other one was of similar in height to Jinshin and Roku. His matte black hair was a slight mess with a few stray hairs popping out here and there, with a large section of his hair combed back, so it wouldn't be falling into his face. His dark eyes were of a more gentle nature than his comrades, yet had intensity like that of a falcon. His manner of dress was akin to that of Geru, except he opted for a black dress shirt. Physically, he was built in a lean manner like Jinshin, rather than being built like an imposing brute like Geru or lanky like Roku was, yet he had more muscular definition than Jinshin. "I'm shocked you didn't accept his challenge, boss. You're going soft," analytically Roku commented as he looked at Jinshin. Not sure what happened in that situation because he had known the fool for a while and that normally resulted in a bare-knuckle beatdown. But that didn't happen this time. Instead, it was handled with diplomacy. Don't you think that sets a bad example for a student council president?" chimed the silver-haired shinobi as he continued to walk, not caring that it might be perceived as weak. No, far from it. He was trying to change his behavior for some reason or another. "You changed, man. You used to be cool. We'd kick ass before school, after school. Then you changed," spoke the towering Inuzuka as he looked to Jinshin, who was remaining calm in the face of all these claims. Quirking a brow, Shirezu couldn't stomach this new restrained Jinshin he was seeing and calmly said, "Yeah, who are you, and what have you done with Jinshin? I mean, you hit on a girl you don't even know, but seriously, you didn't make an open challenge or hit anyone with a wolf snap. Hell, where were your signature moves? You calmly shut down threats using words instead of executing a go to sleep. Hell, where was the manticore tamer? Cry out loud, you guys, I am entitled to be civilized. Besides," began Jinshin, somewhat annoyed with the treatment he was getting because he was trying to act like someone with a position of authority should. He then stopped and looked off into the distance and continued as he reflectively said, "It ain't so nice being the guy known for being a short-tempered lunatic and have everyone be afraid of you. It'd be nice if I was liked instead of reviled and dreaded." "Oh, I get it. You took a liking to that girl, who is clearly Bara's cousin. So that's what happened," exclaimed Roku with amusement and a heelish smirk on his face, knowing that this would get a rise out of the one he called boss. Shut up. Like I'll be taking that easily. I have plenty of girls crazy about me," stuttered the Jinkitsu heir, somewhat embarrassed by the assumptions. Trying his best to act cool about the situation he was in, his cheeks were tinged a faint shade of red as a matter of fact. Jinchan's in Lvov. It was only a matter of time until there was a girl who could defeat you." "Shut up. Jinshin is in Lvov," sang all three in unison, much to the chagrin of the Jinketsu heir, which amused them even further as they continued to sing in amusement. "Jinshin is in Lvov. The infamous alpha male has been bested. That does it," roared Jinshin, as blood veins protruded from his forehead as his anger had reached its peak. He proceeded to form hand seals and some forth a pair of mechanical gauntlets, slipping his hands into the weapons the top and bottoms connected and sealed shut. Clenching his fists tight, he pounded his knuckles together before lifting up the hood of his coat, at which point his voice became more demonic as an aura encircled him, his eyes piercing through the darkness of his hood as he angrily rasped, "Don't run. You'll only die tired." "Okay, we went too far. You think?" growled Jinshin, his bestial canines becoming more pronounced in his angered state as 3-foot-long claws extended from each gauntlet with a resounding snicked sound. "We just had a whine about how he changed. Mercy is for the weak. Now act like the harbingers that you are and accept your punishment." Shikamaru approached Naruto, now that Chuji and Kiba had arrived, and saw the dumbfounded look on the blonde's face, and coolly progressed to state, "You just got defeated by the student council president, Naruto, not physically, but verbally. That is the person you'll have to surpass. He is you, but better, if you want to surpass him, you might have to actually apply yourself." That was when Shikamaru noticed the commotion between the four lunatics watching as the axiomatic leader of the quartet rampaged, trying to mete out punishment upon them. He then said with bemusement, "Or not. Please tell me we don't act like that." "Nah, we're definitely cooler than those losers dash," Naruto began to say, only for a few kunai to fly past his head and hit the ground with a notable shink sound as they pierced the paving stones. Carefully glancing back, he saw the demonic senpai staggering towards him with twitchy movements as if he were some monster from a horror film. "Care to run that by me again? My hearing ain't so good, YC, considering I'm just a loser. Maybe I'll educate you on why the rest of the academy calls me the innovator of chaos," snarled Jinshin as he pointed the razor-sharp claws towards Naruto poised to attack. Light reflected from the extremely sharp blades as Kiba's animal instincts were telling him this was not a situation that was good to be in, a feeling that broadcasted that there was no good to come of challenging this man. "Yeah, you are a loser. The fact a moron like you is the top guy around here pisses me off. You piss me off. You think you're so cool, strutting around in your fur coat like some wrestling heel. Well, that officially upgraded this to DEFCON 2. Shika, does your idiot always pick fights with a lunatic with clawed gloves? Naturally, doesn't your idiot? Also, wasn't he speaking much more properly before? Yes, he does. That. When he's really angry, he begins to speak with the dialect he normally speaks in. When he's angry, he goes country. And suddenly the would-be fight was disrupted by the timely intervention of Hitoru, whom grabbed hold of Jinshin's ear and twisted it. "Damn it. We're going to be late if I let you fight. You are such a moron. Oh, I could be like Kika and like normal people, but no, I have to hang out with the resident heals stable. Phew, if she didn't notice us, that would have been such a problem. Roku commented in relief, thinking they wouldn't suffer an even worse fate. But of course he spoke too soon. And you three, you'll be assisting in my target training today, because I know you had a part in this, declared the Hyuga as she ceased twisting Jinshin's ear and moved on to drag him away by the collar of his coat, visibly annoyed by the fact she was surrounded by idiots. Damn it! The three loudly cussed, knowing they had signed their own death warrants. Y'all deplore the day, why cross me? Let me go, Hataru. I ain't done yet. Let me at least put the fear, oh heaven, in him. You ain't heard T-last of Jinketsu, Jinshin. The silver-haired boy continued his tirade of threats, flailing his clawed arms wildly as he was pulled away. The whole act was cartoonish and silly to outsiders. But who are we kidding? It was the funniest thing anyone could see. No, we're going to be late, and I don't want Anko-sensei getting angry at us again, scolded the white-eyed Kanasahai as she continued to drag Jinshin away by the collar of his coat, not in the mood to put up with his idiocy this early in the morning. Well, may as well go. If he somehow gets loose before he calms down, the bitch will probably add more to our punishment. What a problematic scenario. Last time she made us buy tampons. Remind me why he's our best friend? Complained the well-dressed Nara as he slumped over in annoyance at the situations they always found themselves in. Because he was an outcast loser like us, and we all picked a fight together. Reasoned Shirezu as he pulled out his comb and fixed his hair while walking towards the academy. The way he spoke made it seem as if he already accepted his fate of being associated with a group of outcast lunatic fringe students. What a loser. He's probably all talk, barked Naruto, not even fazed in the least at the threats that were sent his way. The scared dog barks loudest. Naruto, you probably didn't sense it because you're a fool, but I felt at the presence of an apex predator. I think he's the one my sister told me to avoid. Warned Kiba, his voice showing much off the irritation of dealing with Naruto and his idiocy in picking fights on their first day at the new school. Normally, he was one for a challenge, but he didn't want to end up making an enemy where he shouldn't. His bestial instinct often informed him on the best course of action, and in this case, it was to avoid confrontations with those four. Without being aware, these four junior fools had just encountered the four resident troublemakers of the academy, while former troublemakers. Nararoku, the harbinger of death, Inuzuka Guru, the harbinger of calamity, Uchiha Shirizu, the harbinger of strife, and their leader, Jinketsu Jinshin, the harbinger of war. As whole, the quartet was known as the Four Harbingers, or in proper terms, the Four Horsemen. Those gauntlets Jinshin Senpai uses look extremely specialized. I have a sneaking suspicion that he has a lot more up his sleeve than claws. Something about the way he carries himself tells me he isn't some average slacker from a lesser-known clan. Mused Shikamaru as he analyzed the situation they were just in. There was something about the combination of the four senpai that bothered him. He did mention he was related to two dead guys on the Hokage monument, but I doubt he's my cousin, since one of them was my dad, which means he's related to the first and second Hokage. In a confused manner, Naruto bellowed as the tumblers in his mind finally turned over and he realized what that comment meant. And you finally realize that comment means something? Naruto, you are stupid beyond belief. If he is related to the Senju, that means he has possibly more skills than he lets on, though that rampaging violence was most definitely legitimate. I don't think he's a prodigy, but he probably has his own talents. Early summary. I'd say he is you, but better. Then I'll just have to become better than him by dethroning him, and then I will become the king around here. Naruto once more declared, throwing his fist into the air with newfound determination to prove that he was infinitely better than the dangerous senpai. You have your work cut out then, Naruto. I noticed senpai is a lot smoother than you with his advances on girls like Sakura. She did look kind of happy with him, said Chuji, whom had remained quiet the whole time, stating one area that was not analyzed by the rest. That one being that Jinshin was far more casual in his approach to approaching Sakura. The blonde Jinchuriki was rendered into naught but a pillar of salt frozen in abject horror at the revelation that it was true, and then internally he began to despair, thinking, it's true, it's true. Sakura-chan was even blushing when he spoke to her. What does he have that I don't? He even got his ass kicked by her. And he realizes now that Jinshin Senpai is the greatest nemesis he will ever know. What a drag. This guy is such an annoying friend. Complained Shikamaru as he buried his face into his own hands, not sure why they had to put up with a friend. Then he became much more relieved when he had the epiphany that Roku probably had it much worse, because his designated idiot was more of a troublemaker. At this point, there was another incident happening within the school, on the first year's floor in classroom 1A, to be exact, wherein Ino stood amongst a throng of female classmates making a boastful declaration proudly stating, "So Sakura shall not be a threat to us anymore." She met a senpai, and she was basically like, "Senpai, I love you, hee hee." And to think, it was I who introduced them. "So beautiful," exclaimed the platinum blonde Kunoichi as she shed a crocodilian tear, feigning tears of happiness at a situation she caused. She never once thought about the consequences of her actions, at least until the hairs on the back of her neck stood up, and she felt the glowering look of the one she was talking about become focused on her. "Inu, I hope you have your affairs in order, because I'm going to murder you," roared the pink-haired beauty, her eyes narrowed into a look of furious anger. Her fists clenched as she walked towards her nemesis, ready to dish out some comeuppance with righteous fury. Once she reached the desks that would prove an obstacle, she waited for Ino to smirk, thinking this was going to stop her assault, and summarily leapt into the air, flying above the desks and crashing downward, planting her fist into the floor, only because Ino had barely managed to dodge to the right. "Oh, Sakura-chan's angry. Did Jinshin Senpai dump you already because he didn't like your big forehead?" taunted the platinum-haired Kunoichi as she gracefully bounded across the desks, avoiding her angry friend, making a rude face as she gracefully strode across the desks one after another. Of course, green-eyed Demonis wasn't going to play this on Ino's territory and began to swat the desks away one after another, ensuring Ino ran out of road to flee upon. Seeing that her nemesis was out of a place to run from her, jumped into the air in an attempted takedown maneuver, but it missed once again as the platinum-haired Kunoichi vaulted into the air above. And that's when she saw the disheveled silver hair of the senpai that caused this awkward circumstance come into view. "Hey, Yune, are you here?" Jinshin asked in a serious tone as he peered into the classroom, only to be greeted by the sight of Sakura flying right towards him. A faint chuckle escaped his maw, with his wolfish grin showing before he skillfully stepped forward. Each movement was calculated as he caught her in his arms, shifting her weight, so he was holding her in a princess-style carry, and dryly went on to say, "We gotta quit meeting like this, Blossom. People might start talking. This day officially sucks," Sakura said in a tone filled with dejection as gloomy expression overtook her as she let loose a weary sigh. She then looked up and angrily said, "Wait, why are you here, senpai? Are you stalking me?" "Yes, I came just to see you, Blossom. When we met, it was like kismet." Dramatically, he declared, his voice laden with immense sarcasm as he gently helped her out of his arms, a lazy smirk on his face as he glanced at her. He then grinned broadly and said, "Nah, my older sister is your teacher. Just wanted to tell her a few things, but guess she ain't here yet. I'll better not stay too long. Hataru-chan will get angry once she realizes that's just a shadow clone." Then it dawned on her that he was calling her Blossom, causing her to blush furiously, to which she loudly said with awkwardness, "Why are you calling me Blossom? We don't know each other well enough for you to give." "'Cause you're a pretty blossom," he confidently said with a wink, the same wild grin plastered on his face as he looked at her kindly. Then he began to hear the gossip of the other girls, and he too became flustered. Wow, Ino was right, they are an item. Senpai must be some sort of smooth talker. Of course, he keeps calling her Blossom. He must be some loser if he's going for girls in the first year. Talk about a try hard. Look at that gauche fur coat. He's too handsome for her, if you ask me. Why would he want someone so flat? Oh man, it's too late. They're already talking," whined Jinshin as he slumped over in despair, knowing how fast rumors spread. Realizing due to this, some situations in his life would become hectic, he threw his arms up, exclaiming, "Now the school will devolve into sectarian violence. My life is over, and it's your fault," protested Sakura as she glared at her senpai, unhappy that because of this, her chances with Sasuke were being dashed little by little. Of course, she became all the more angry when her irritation fell upon deaf ears. Gripping his ear, she twisted it, and in hostile manner she snarled, "Why aren't you upset in the least that you're ruining my life?" Once Ino finally got a good look at Jin Shin, a sly smirk crossed her lips as devious machinations overtook her mind. She couldn't deny that she found him attractive. But the foremost thought on her mind at the moment was agitating Sakura even more. She had done so well thus far. But now she had to do something really egregious to really make her angry. That's when it hit her. She'll make the situation between Jin Shin and Sakura more awkward. The devious smile on her face became increasingly more evil as she quietly thought to herself, "I'll make them look like such a couple that she will never be able to come back from it. And then Sasuke-kun will be mine." "Hey, Hinata, get your phone out," the Yamanaka heiress said, with a sly grin on her face. Her evil plan would need an accomplice to succeed, and she knew who to use. "Why? Why you're not going to try embarrassing Sakura again, are you?" Timidly, the former Hyuga heiress asked, her face flushed due to her usual shyness. Her long silken black hair was neatly tied back as it trailed down her back. She dressed in another variant of a uniform, wearing a black sweater vest in this instance in an attempt to camouflage her large bust. Not exactly, but if she's believed to be dating Senpai, Naruto won't be chasing her as much. Won't Sakura be angry? What? Nah. In fact, this is for her own good. This is like ripping off the Band-Aid. If you say so. Relax. It'll be fine. Just when you get the picture, send it to me, and I will take care of the rest. She swiftly proceeded to rush between the two, gripping onto his coat and tugging on the sleeve, then catching Sakura distracted, grab her by the arm, and proceeded to send them towards one another, and then proceeded to exclaim, "Whup! I forgot something." In a startled tone. Jin Shin staggered as his balance was shifted by Ino crashing between him and Sakura. Then his eyes widened as he saw this time he was staggering towards Sakura for a change. "Huh!" shrieked the pink-haired Kunoichi as she was sent flying towards Jin Shin, all the while cursing the horrible first day she was having. And that's when it happened. The two, trying to catch themselves, ended up in an embrace. But it wasn't enough, and their lips brushed in a tender kiss, causing both to blush furiously. But in the time that it took for them to realize the situation they were in, and that they were kissing, it was too late. Pictures were taken and posted to all forms of social media. Realizing what had just happened, she jumped back from him as he did the same. A look of sheer embarrassment on their face as she proceeded to angrily complain, That was my first kiss. How could you? How could I? I had no control on the situation. I got good reflexes, but I ain't that good. Oh man, you know what? Just tell Yune I need her to tell me who the class rep is by the end of the day," replied the Jinketsu heir, embarrassed beyond belief, as he knew this was going to result in more problems for him, more than he wanted. And of course he knew any chances he had with her were forever dashed. Not that he liked her, that is. Meanwhile, a short distance from Konoha in the allied village of Tajenkyu, which is the village the Jinketsu originate from. At the Jinketsu clan's farm, a loud yell from an older woman was heard as she angrily said, "What the hell? I didn't approve of this. This can't be happening," groaned Sakura as she looked forward from her seat in sheer displeasure, as she realized that the life she knew was destroyed. All it took was a few mishaps within less than half an hour. And why, pray tell, was she so dismayed now? Well, that was because of who the homeroom teacher was. A young woman stood at the head of the classroom. She had messy silver hair that was lightly tousled, looking like she just woke up. In all honesty, her eyes were much like his, only a touch more friendly, with a shade of deep blue. She dressed in a way that screamed paramilitary. A gunmetal blue tank top that clung well to her slender body and ample bust, black cargo pants with several scrolls strapped to her thighs, and along her waist an especially designed belt to accommodate the number. Lastly, she wore a military-style jacket that was black in color with military-style bars on the sleeves like those of a master sergeant. This was Jinketsu Hasu, Jinshin's full-blood elder sister. As for the full-blood aspect, that'd have to be explained at the right time. Now, I didn't know how Irika ran things, but I am your new den mother, and I'm a lot stricter. You no doubt met Dash, began the silver-haired Jounin, when she spotted Naruto about to open his mouth and interrupt, whereupon she proceeded to loudly snap, "Hey, Blondie, Don't you be thinking about interrupting me. I ain't as soft as Irika. If I want to run to the gates of the village and back while wearing 50 pounds of gear, go ahead. Hearing the penalty of what would happen if he spoke out of turn, the blonde Jinchuriki swallowed hard as sank down into his seat to avoid any further trouble. Now, as I was saying, some Oya met my baby brother, the current student council president. I have notes on Oya, so if I had to compare him and the rest of the renegades he runs with, you are all inferior. I can systematically point out your flaws. All of you have major flaws that can be a liability. I doubt I'm inferior to a lunatic who tries to eviscerate obnoxious losers because they teased him. I saw how he had a meltdown earlier. He is probably more of a loser than Naruto. Rebuked Sasuke with a tone of indignation and annoyance that he would be considered inferior to someone like Jin Shin. Sorry why I feel that way. But discounting you, I still gotta educate the others. While it is true your field jounin will be responsible for your training, I would be remiss if I didn't do my part. That includes making sure why idiots get a proper education, as well as finding a natural field of expertise, because everyone has a skill they excel at, even loudmouth over there. But first things first, history. So open your books and we'll begin. Was the polite reply from Yahasu. Not in a mood for dealing with an arrogant student, but she had a feeling that karma would work it all out. No, more like she was well aware that Sasuke would more than likely run afoul of her brother somehow, and that would be the universe working things out. I really wish Senpai was joking that his sister was my teacher. I really do now. I can feel my academic life being destroyed by that inconsiderate jerk. Because of him, my life is becoming a mess. Quietly, Sakura thought to herself as she opened her textbook and opened her notebook to begin taking notes. She, of course, felt her mind wander, contemplating what kind of stupidity he is causing his class, since he was bound to be a source if disruption. Of course, in classroom 2C, there was a disruption taking place. But it wasn't Jinshin, nor was it any of his idiot friends. Rather, it was Mitarashi Anko, the Jounin, as she clung to the corner of the room near the windows, readying a kunai with intent to hit the empty soda can on top of Jinshin's head. Of course, he wasn't aware of the circumstances of what was going on, because he was sleeping. Big shock, that one. The guy who looked like a delinquent didn't pay attention in class, readying the kunai so it would fly true and hit only the can as she casually said, "All right, after this we'll begin the lesson." So in summary, he wasn't causing problems, just not what could be considered problems. But how he could sleep after the embarrassing circumstances from earlier was anyone's guess. But chances are he was unaware that it was a viral rumor at this point. That was until lunch, when he finally checked his phone and found that on all social media networks it was there, the pictures of him kissing Sakura. Neen Scroll and Striker, both feeds were plastered with it. Many featuring angry comments from some girls who were none too pleased to see him locking lips with another girl, and with a voice filled with despondency, he said, "And my mom probably knows about this, and is either forbidding it or making plans for me to marry Sakura." Why do you assume that, boss? It's not like your mother expects you to find a decent girl that meets her high standards of who is appropriate for you, so you can continue your dysfunctional family line. Roku casually replied, his voice laced with harsh sarcasm, emphasizing how utterly ruined his friend was. Ugh, why couldn't my mom be normal? I had to have a literal tiger mom. Whined the Jinketsu heir as he fell against the wall in despair at the situation he found himself. A dark cloud seemed to hover over him as he was in anguish at his situation. Noting this moment of insecurity in his normally cocky and conceited friend, Shirezu said with some humor in his voice, "What's more amusing is that girl was your first kiss. The irony, you've been popular with girls as long as we've known you, and you're still as pure as driven snow. So what? It means little if I just hand it out like my whore of a father. I just would rather have meaningful relationships I choose." In an honest tone, Jinshin explained as he cautiously glanced inside the cafeteria, afraid to go in due to the current trend about him. "If girls knew you were this way, you'd be even more popular. The hopeless romantic, Jinketsu Jinshin, he only wants to love and be loved. But seriously, you'll feel better once you eat." Dryly, Roku said, knowing that his best friend would recover if he ate. Unlike most Nara who grew up near Konoha, he grew up in the same village as Jinshin, as did the other two. This was due to some circumstances. These circumstances often involved breaking of taboos within their own clan. The four fools had a long history of getting caught up in trouble together, and additionally were always ready to overcome any problems they might face. What? Oh, hell no. I'm not going in there. I think I'll just run to where I'm living and get a sandwich, was the meek excuse from the silver-haired boy as he got to his feet and tried to run away, only to be stopped by Guru, whom effortlessly lifted him off the ground. Knowing in the past he might have just brushed it off as an incident, adjusting his tie, he then made the call and ordered, "Guru, Shirezu, let's go. Jinshin, act like you have a pair. Right, forgive me, Dailo, but this is for your own good," Guru apologetically said as he proceeded to execute the order and walked into the cafeteria and placed the innovator of chaos on the floor. Jay, just act confident. Yeah, I can do this. I do it all the time. Just gotta act like I always do. He instantly reflected as he walked ahead, taking deep breaths as he moved ahead, trying to keep his composure. Because ultimately a lot of his cockiness was merely an act that he put on because it commanded more respect than the calmer personality he had. As the judgmental gazes of the other students fell on him as they quietly gossiped about what happened, he swallowed hard and went on to say, "Well, if you're going to say some meat, then say it. I ain't an art exhibit, you slobbering, sycophantic troglodytes." As the gossiping student body realized by the tone of his voice that it wasn't a good idea to provoke him right now, they returned to eating their meals. Because in the end, he still had the bad reputation from last year of picking fights. They didn't want to push their luck. There it is. The moron is always confident as hell when he's in a fight, but in social situations, he's all thumbs. He has those brief moments where he's relaxed enough that he can be himself. My early speculation is due to Sakura bearing a striking resemblance to Bara. He was able to be himself. But even then, if he feels the situation calls for it, he forgets all that because the moron thinks himself to be some voice of the voiceless. Roke humorist as he casually walked ahead, knowing that this is the way their friendship always worked. Much like a stable in wrestling, they covered for each other's flaws in battle and in social situations. Come on, let's get some lunch. The sooner this day gets over with, the better, sighed Jinshin as he walked towards the lunch counter to get something to eat. Of course, a normal meal for him was, well, copious amounts of cheeseburgers. They were for him what ramen was for Naruto. Off to the side, though, something was about to cause another ripple in the day for the heir of the Jinketsu. Sakura was timidly trying to talk to Sasuke. She coyly twirled her long hair about her right index finger as she shyly said, "Sasuke-kun, would you like to eat together? It'll be my treat. Take the hint, I've been ignoring you for years. I don't want or need useless people like you in my life. You and the Dobe are insignificant pests to me. You only serve to get in my way. Let me tell you, so you can understand, leave me alone. I don't need some stupid love-struck girl hanging around me all the time." With harsh hostility, he replied, not even bothering to look at her. He then proceeded to walk off slowly. As Sasuke was all the Kunoichi could say as tears welled in her eyes. This situation went down differently than she had thought it would in her mind. In fact, it was more heart-wrenching. Having witnessed this incident unfold, Jinshin's eyes darkened as they narrowed and his bestial canines became more pronounced. He then angrily said in a commanding tone, "Roku, hold my lunch." "There it is. Don't worry, we'll keep your food safe. By the way, what are you drinking? And how many?" was the unworried and casual reply from Roku as he took the tray of food. "I'll have the usual Mountain Rush Crimson. Give me diet or decaf, and we'll have a problem. Got it?" Nonchalantly was his reply as he continued to step forward, officially agitated. He then loudly barked, "EY. PMS, you the dipshit with a duck's ass for hair. There are things I can tolerate, and things that provoke a kill order from me. One being you chose that haircut, but the greatest offense is how you treated the lady. Blossom here is a lady, treat her like one. If you don't want to eat with her, just be polite about it. And why should I listen to the lunatic who tried to attack people because they teased him about a clingy girl? Furthermore, why are you jumping to defend her? But why should I consider a mongrel who hangs out with Uchiha, who are also mongrels?" Came a hostile reply from the Uchiha survivor as he glanced back with contempt of the interfering shinobi, his words laced with venomous and incendiary comments about the other's heritage. At least Shirezu's parents weren't brother and sister. Ain't that what you Uchiha and Hyuga do? Hold on, wait, was it cousins? I forget since I'm just a mongrel. My inferior genetics make me less of a shinobi than the kid who was brought about through incest. In shoot fashion, Jinshin let loose his insults as he began to rub his chin, trying to figure out which it was. Shut your mouth. Don't talk about my family, you mongrel filth, bellowed Sasuke. He turned about face, his eyes narrowed with intent to kill as he proceeded to rush forward, throwing punches swiftly. But his anger took away any potential to hit, as the older student patiently dodged each strike. It is crucial that I don't need to go overboard. I do feel sympathy for him. No one should have to witness what he did, but I cannot allow him being harsh to her. Maybe it's 'cause I like her, but I do the same for anyone. Reflected the Jinketsu heir as he subtly blocked each blow that came his way, utilizing a subtle sweeping palm strike. That is when he spotted his opening, swinging his left arm out and to the left, the edge of his hand chopped into soft tissue of Sasuke's right forearm, softening the flesh. He then gripped the wrist and proceeded to execute an arm drag takedown, tossing the raven-haired Avenger to the floor with a resounding thud. "Shut up, you mongrel!" Sasuke shouted as he sprang back to his feet, rushing in with a flurry of punches, elbow strikes, and kicks, all of which were avoided before they would connect. This increased frustration for the Uchiha as he said under his breath, "How is he doing this? He's just a mongrel from one of those lesser clans born of the immigrants from that continent to the west." As an errant punch blurred past his face, Jinshin gripped hold of the Sasuke's already weakened arm, taking him into a fireman's carry, which was followed by him proceeding to drop him off in front, bringing both knees up into a gut buster. The impact was a bit harder than anticipated, causing the younger shinobi to bounce off and onto the floor. "Ugh, fuck. How can he be this strong?" was the rasping, angry reply of the Uchiha as he rolled across the floor, clenching his softened abdomen. It was at this juncture that Jinshin cast off his coat, removed the tie, and unbuttoned his shirt, loudly declaring, "Sorry, kid, but today you gotta learn, even if I am a so-called mongrel, I do have my pride." Walking to a table that quickly became vacant, he dropped to his knees, resting his right palm on a seat as he motioned with his left hand in a motion that said, "Come on, come on," as he waited for the Uchiha to get to his feet. As the weakened student got to his feet and began to turn, it was already too late, because within mere moments, Jinshin closed the gap and struck with a running shoulder tackle, which connected with the already weakened midsection and then hit a dead stop, sending the Uchiha rolling across the floor. "My apologies, kid, but this ain't your old academy. Half of the student body are my people. We are the heirs of the hack Rengu. I can talk bad about me, call me a sociopath, but my people are off limits. Our heritage is off limits. Never call us mongrels. That is a slur and I won't allow it," explained the student council president as he walked forward, each step well measured until he reached the possibly broken Uchiha and brought him back to his feet. He then spoke so only the two of them could hear. "I am sorry about what happened to your family. I truly am. Most of my kin died in the war, but loss ain't no excuse for being a jackass. Now, apologize to the lady," ordered Jinshin, punctuating each and every word as he directed Sasuke to Sakura, holding a firm grip on the Uchiha's shirt collar. "Sorry, I was out of line," was the begrudging reply from Sasuke. Once released from the grip of the Jinketsu, he collapsed to the floor, clutching his bruised ribs as one solitary thought filled his head. So this is what Yahasu Sensei meant. He was somehow reading my moves, predicting where each move was coming and when. Probably it's the perceptive talents that clan possesses I heard about. The Jinketsu clan. The clan supposedly has been around for 13 generations, but the first time they appear in our history was during the first Great Ninja War, when a man named Janato appeared wielding a steel release technique. But like the Senju, there is no static ability within the clan. It differs from person to person. The Iron Beast, Jinketsu Kurigane, the current head of the clan, created an armored suit that he wears into battle. And Yahasu Sensei wields puppets apparently. But what is Jinshin's talent? If I had to guess, I would say it's something of a stripped-down Sharingan. The way he read my moves tells me he was reading body language and subtle movements. He isn't the idiot I took him for. He is a calculating, manipulative bastard. I took the bait and attacked just as he wanted. Quietly, the Uchiha thought as he watched him from a distance, knowing now that he had encountered someone he may have misjudged, his eyes narrowing in frustration as he began to brood over the painful loss he just suffered. He had thought that he was dealing with someone similar to Naruto, but in essence, Jinshin was a completely different animal. Sorry about that, Blossom. I think I just made the rumors about us worse. Apologetically, Jinshin said to Sakura as he buttoned up his shirt once more, but chose to leave the shirt untucked, and once more donned his vest and his gauche fur coat. You just thought of that now? I would have been fine on my own, murmured the Kunoichi as her eyes darted off to the side, blushing faintly. Though she said that, she was oddly flattered that he would step in and do that. What she means is, thank you, senpai. Right, Sakura? Spoke a soft and gentle voice which both Jinshin and Sakura instantly recognized. When they turned to see who it was, there stood a Kunoichi whom had long pink hair like Sakura, which was neatly combed back and held back with a hair clip in the back, which also helped in tying it back. She dressed in a similar manner to Sakura, with the inclusion of a sweater vest. But there was one key difference between her and Sakura. Her bust was vastly different. She was none other than the aforementioned Haruno Bara, the elegant rose of Class 2C. Hi, Jinshin-kun. I hear you and my cousin had an eventful morning. She sweetly greeted as she clung close to Sakura, hugging her affectionately from behind. She then shifted her glance to her cousin and politely said, "To think that Jinshin-kun and Sakura-chan would be each other's first kiss. That doesn't count. A kiss has to have meaning behind it," protested Jinshin as he protested whilst his face was bright red in embarrassment. As senpai's first kiss was me, but I thought he was some sort of chick magnet. At least that's what the rumors are, exclaimed Sakura in shock. At first, it is then she realized what was being discussed and loudly protested, saying, "Yeah, that doesn't count. It was an accident." Jinshin is actually a touch shy about stuff like that. He's a natural at fighting, but socially he's awkward. Oh. Sorry, Jinshin. Garu gave your lunch to his dog, but if you don't mind eating with me and Saki, I'll treat you, of course. I know how bad you get if you're hungry, chimed the older Haruno with a genteel smile as she released her cousin and proceeded to grab Jinshin by the arm and pull him off to get some lunch, not waiting to hear his complaints. She only stopped long enough to grab her cousin by the arm and pull her off to get some lunch while coolly saying, "You're coming too." But, Bara, we already have enough rumors floating around. Let them talk. I know you're not really bold enough to do that. I mean, we did date once. You dated my cousin. It's not like that, Blossom. It really isn't. It was one date that it. We decided to just be friends, Bara explained as she chimed in with a gleeful smile as she pushed the two to the lunch counter so they could order their meals. She smiled cunningly as she watched them from behind while musing to herself as thought, "Oh, it's so obvious the way you two clicked when you met. That is the very meaning of kismet and the way they act when together." He normally wouldn't have gone to another classroom for his duties. He'd just dump it on Shiro and go take a nap. But I think he was looking for an excuse to see her. "I will you two my support no matter what." Ugh, so hungry. I can't believe Garu would do that to my food. He knows the rule, no one eats my food but me. Well, they didn't know if you're going to slap on some nasty submission hold. You know how you get when you're in that mode. A simple punch ends up being a 3-hour last man standing brawl, was the casual reply from Bara as she smiled in a comforting manner. But behind her smile was a touch of calculated planning as she serenely thought to herself, "What he doesn't know is I told them to do whatever they wanted with his food because someone had to do something about these two. Ugh, stop reminding me of who I used to be. So embarrassing." Groaned Jinshin with mortification as he buried his face into his hands, not wanting to think about his old ways in the least. He then peeked between his fingers and calmly said, "I'll have a bacon cheeseburger, mushroom Swiss burger, and one." "Wait, you're going to eat just burgers for lunch?" "Jinshin senpai, that isn't healthy," interrupted Sakura with annoyance at the way he was eating, her face showing great disappointment in his behavior, finding he acted like a child. "That is healthy. The first one has bacon. And what are you going to have with them?" "Cheese fries." Yes, stammered the Jinketsu heir initially until he realized he wasn't going to win and ultimately admitted to the truth. Narrowing her eyes slightly, she then turned to the counter and said with a sweet smile, "He'll have the imperial fried rice and spring rolls, and I'll have the Oyakodon. He, who knew she would be one to take the initiative and do something about his terrible habits. Even Yahasu-san had trouble doing something about that. Unfortunately, this would just push the idea that you two are dating. With amusement, Bura analyzed the situation as she too placed her order. She was much more subtle about her efforts to push the two together. Of course, she didn't have malicious intent like Ino as a reason for doing what she did. She in fact wanted them to be happy. She saw something special in the way they behaved around each other, and she liked it. Oh, why do I have to eat healthy? I moved out so I could eat what I want, complained Jinshin as he stared at the meal he had as he sat down. And it wasn't that it was a small meal. It's just he liked to eat burgers, while sandwiches in general were his favorite. What do you eat for breakfast? Ice cream? Sharply, Sakura proceeded to chide him for his childish behavior, as she too sat down, but not too close, hoping to make the rumors die down. What'd I take me for? I cook. Hell, I'm a great cook. If I cooked for you be demanding I be your husband. Fine if you want me to eat more healthily, gonna need more in this. Defiantly, he replied as he picked up his serving of fried rice and began to eat with enthusiasm. Sakura-chan, Jinshin isn't adverse to eating healthier meals. What you ordered him is part of his normal diet. His burgers are more of a personal choice. He gets the same amount of calories as he would eating a proper meal. Explained Bura before she quietly began to eat her meal. She then stopped and glanced over to an empty seat and casually said, I wonder where Saki is. She said she had to go have a discussion with Ino and would be right here. Jinshin-senpai, what did you mean by who I used to be? That makes me wonder what you used to be like before I met you. Asked the younger Haruno, trying to grasp what that kind of comment would mean. In fact, all the subjects brought forth when he said that seemed odd. Jinshin, of course, likely choked on some rice, not liking the subject that was being broached because it was part of his shameful past. He didn't like thinking about who he was before, so consumed with anger and utter hatred. Well, Jinshin-kun, you need to tell her. This is your past after all, was the single comment the gentler of the two Haruno made. So I guess I better make sure she never likes me. With an exasperated sigh, Jinshin set his bowl and chopsticks down and took a deep breath since it wasn't exactly something he liked to talk about. He was doing his best to change who he was to become someone better. 1 year ago, it was the start of the term. Students had arrived from both the temple and Konoha's own primary academy. Jinshin, on the other hand, had also arrived, but he was far from put together and presentable. His hair much messier, with a slew of piercings, snakebite in his lower lip, and 8 cuff piercings, each engraved with one of the trigrams. His dress shirt wasn't even buttoned, revealing his bare, toned torso, and instead of the standard dress pants, he was wearing black cargo pants. Faye, I can't believe I have to go to this shithole. In disgust, he complained as he slowly walked through the campus courtyard, a smug smirk as he made his way to the classroom assignment board. Scouring the list, he found himself assigned to Class 1C with the outcasts he was familiar with. Button your shirt. This will be your only dash, spoke a member of the disciplinary committee, noted by their more military-style dress uniform with an armband with the village symbol on it. Of course, they didn't get to finish their sentence, as Jinshin spun about face and grappled hold of their head and fell into a dead drop, planting both knees firmly into their face, knocking them out. Who else? Who else wants to tell me what TDO? Huh. Loudly he made his threat as he struck a pose, looking left and right, enjoying the looks of terror in the eyes of the student body. He began to walk away from the down disciplinary committee member, a feeling of satisfaction filling his mind as he took sight of the now frightened student body. He then made a boastful declaration. Realize now, your halcyon days are over, because y'all have me to deal with. I am your destroyer god. Run afoul of me, and I will see why broken on the ground, just like this stupid motherfucker. That'll be enough. Interjected a voice challenging the behavior of the Jinketsu heir, because what had just happened was itself uncalled for behavior. A slender man of at least the same age as Jinshin, his black hair cut in a more military style, cropped hair cut lightly spiked. His eyes were cold and narrowed aggressively. He dressed in the more military-style uniform that the disciplinary committee favored, black with red piping. Shimura Resher was this boy's name, and he wanted to enforce his code of ethics to the letter. He wouldn't allow this delinquent's behavior. Lee Niji, subdue this ruffian. Right. announced Rock Lee as he emerged from behind Resher, dressed in the committee's standard uniform. On it, spoke Niji as he emerged as well. He too was dressed in the uniform. Kach, why think that's enough? If that's the way you want to play it, all disciplinary committee members report to the courtyard. We have a troublemaker. In an instant, several members of the disciplinary committee arrived on the scene. The hopes were to invoke enough fear the troublemaker would stand down, but that wasn't an option this time. Yeah, that's cute. I call that Tuesday. Let's be honest. I could kick each and every one of your asses. You bowl cut. I'd really kick your ass. Just because I can't stand your attaboy routine. I think you're misinterpreting the math here. I have over a dozen skilled people ready to take you down. I have an army. Yeah, that's cute, Garu, if you would. It was in that moment a monstrous shadow landed right behind Resher. The Mohawk beast then grabbed Resher by the neck and effortlessly lifted him off the ground and with a light snarl said, "The boss will not be harassed. Put him down, big guy, right?" A single word reply from the mountainous Inuzuka as he tossed the smaller male off to the side like he were a rag doll. There's gonna be some new rules around here. We'll wear our uniforms, but you cucks ain't gonna tell us how we're gonna wear 'em. We won't let you mongrels do as you please. Mongrel, with a guttural growl, Jinshin replied as he stood up and sprinted forward with blinding speed. Stepping up on Reshi's knee, he swiftly drove his right knee square into his jaw prior to angrily yelling out, "Never call U.S. mongrels. Just because our ancestors were immigrants doesn't make us lesser beings. We demand your fucking respect." "Ha, that's so," he smugly said as he wiped some blood from his lip, a self-satisfied smirk crossing his visage as his fingers twisted. "Yes, we won't allow you to be a disturbance in this school. Fate has decided you should be expunged," replied Niji as he slipped in behind the Jinketsu, slipping into his gentle fist, knowing he shouldn't hold back against this guy. "Y'all have to try harder than that," is all that Jinshin said as he walked away from the two, seeming to disregard them. Pulling out his phone, he dialed a number on the phone and casually spoke, saying, "Kaseiji, what's the over-under at?" "Really?" Both moved, or tried to move to stop him, but found their movement restricted by a shadow possession technique. The one executing this technique was none other than Roku, who still dressed the way he did then. But unlike his cousin, he had no issues of stamina while using the technique because after years of training within the temple, he had built up a high level of endurance and stamina. "Roku, do it." Kaseiji says if they hit each other, it will be a swerve that will take those that bet against us for a loop. There she goes fixing bets again. Oh, well, she's the one who said it'd make some money if we picked a fight with the disciplinary committee. Initially complaining, the Nara stepped forward and let loose a gut punch, which in turn caused both to strike each other in the abdomen, and the force he used in his punch caused them to effectively knock the wind out of each other. Kneeling next to the dazed Resher, Jinshin smirked smugly as he grabbed hold of his head and said callously, "This ain't personal. It's just business. But don't think this is the end. There are gonna be some changes around here." Smugly, he walked away, certain of his victory in this instant. Of course, Resher was not one to stay down and lick his wounds. Producing a jit, he slowly rose to his feet and swiftly ran towards Jinshin. Swinging the blunt weapon downward, he aimed to disable one of the legs. But he failed to anticipate that Jinshin had planned on this. The silver-haired ruffian dropped downward and thrust his elbow back, executing a low blow in more ways than one. The evident leader of the disciplinary committee dropped to the ground, roaring in agony as he fell into a fetal position. Naturally, Jinshin wasn't done yet as he stalked around the downed boy, a look of disappointment in his eyes as he coldly and heartlessly said, "Did ya really think that'd work? I think why need a reminder not to try that shit on me again?" Focusing in on the boy's dominant arm, a fiendish sneer took to Jinshin's maw as he quickly proceeded to push Resher onto his belly and step on his upper back, proceeding to take hold of his arm and begin pulling it back towards him. The screams of agony echoing throughout the courtyard. As a fiendish look of delight took to the Jinketsu's face, it only became more sadistic until the sickening crack rang out and the arm was released. The dark-haired boy cried out in painful agony, clutching his arm in pain as tears fell from his eyes. The surefire way to let someone know you won is via submission. The suffering will haunt them forever. Callously, the silver-haired boy commented as he walked away, a sadistic look on his face as he slowly began to laugh in delight at the chaos he had wrought. He would have to realize down the road that his use of brutal force only created more problems for him. In the end, no matter how many arms he broke, no matter how much chaos he created, he was unsatisfied because it would never bring him closure to that incident in his past. I hate who I used to be. Always angry because I thought people were judging me because, oh, my heritage or my connection to the Senju. I really want to change who I am. But sometimes no matter how hard I try, there's no escape in my past. Remorsefully, the silver-haired shinobi commented as he finished his story, placing his chopsticks atop the now empty bowl. A meditative gaze taking to his eyes as he laced his fingers, creating a bridge which he rested his chin upon. Wow, I never imagined that there were two aspects to you, began Sakura after hearing the story about the old behavior of the senpai she thought was a careless jerk. She then smiled softly and said, "But I think it's great that you're trying to change who you are. It does take a lot." Wait, did he just say he has connection to the Senju? That's right, my adorable baby brother and I are blood relatives to the Shodai and Naidame, replied the now familiar voice of Yahasu as she appeared behind Jinshin and quickly embraced him affectionately, much to his chagrin, as noted by the flailing of his arms. Elemgu, let me go. Yune, I told you not at school. I done need more removersors. I don't need people thinking I have some weird relationship with my sister. As for you, began the older Jinketsu, relinquishing her hold on her brother before she quickly shifted her glance to Sakura and continued. You can call me Nei-san, since it seems you're dating him. To think spring has come for my adorable baby brother. We are not dating, was the loud protest from the two parties that made up the perceived budding romance. The more Y2 deny it, the more it looks real. That's when Jinshin's phone proceeded to ring. His eyes instantly filled with trepidation as he knew who it was without looking. Because his ringtone was set to a dirge for this person in particular, he didn't need to bother looking to see who it was. He thought about rejecting the call because he didn't want to talk to the person calling. You know she isn't going to stop calling. You better answer it. Answer the damn phone, barked Yahasu, subtly hinting that she didn't want to explain how she allowed something like this to happen under her watch. Fine, was the weak-willed reply from Jinshin as he cautiously picked up his phone and unlocked the screen. But before he could even answer, he had to pull the phone away from his head, wincing as the person on the other end began yelling at him. What is the meaning of this? I told you, if you want a girlfriend, you need my approval. You better have a good explanation, young man. Are you listening to me? And mom, ain't what dash. It isn't what it looks like. It looked like you were kissing a girl to me. Let me talk to her. And don't try to tell me she isn't there. I see you through the window. That is when Jinshin, Yahasu, Sakura, and Bra all turned their heads, and a look of abject horror took to their faces as they saw Kintora was motioning that she had her eyes on them. Kintora was a middle-aged woman with graying, golden blonde hair, her long blonde hair nearly tied back into a low-hanging ponytail. She had eyes of deep blue resembling those of a tiger, or in this case a tigress. Her slender frame was draped in a gold and black long coat, while she dressed with a simple cream-colored sweater and long black dress. She rested against an ornate cane featuring a tiger motif to help her retain balance on her right side. As for why is a story for another time. Jinshin, your mom is scaring me, Sakura stated with mild fear of the older woman. She scares everyone. In a dry and emotionless tone, tinged with embarrassment, Jinshin responded as he buried his face into his hands, repeatedly saying why, because he was beyond embarrassed at this point. He was mortified. Oh my god, is that gold tiger Jinketsu Kindora? Excitedly Tenten stated as she stared in shock that one of her role models appeared at the school. Her manner of uniform was pretty standard, just a white dress shirt, tie, and plaid skirt, which was predictable for the young kunoichi who wanted to be remembered for her skill rather than her appearance. Her hair, on the other hand, was two braids that she had woven into twin buns. Except her, sighed the Jinketsu heir as he knew instantly it was Tenten, so he didn't even lift his head. After another weary sigh, he said, Really, Tenten, really? But Kintora-sama is one of the coolest kunoichi ever. Next to Tsunade-sama, that is, mistress of the Kusarigama. Wait, What did you do this time? I better check. Pulling out her phone, she checked mean scroll and striker and quickly shifted her glance to Jinshin, her eyes half closed as she coldly said, I can't believe you. You're supposed to be setting an example as student council president, and you do this. And aren't you engaged to Shirayuki? Not by choice. If I had a choice, I wouldn't pick a girl that can do an ujo cackle at a moment's notice. Besides, my crazy mother engaged me to probably 12 other girls I lost count. Huh. See, this is what happens when you don't let me pick Dash. But of course, Kintura wasn't allowed to finish lecturing her son as the phone was snatched away from her hands by an individual who stepped in. A tall individual with silver hair pulled back and tied in a braid like some kung fu master, his stern dragon-like eyes, or rather, eye peering into the cafeteria from outside his other eye, unfortunately, was covered by an eye patch with a scar running vertically above and below it. He dressed with a certain flair that almost shouted sword master. A blue and white Chinese-style top with a high collar and a dragon embroidered across the front and back, black cargo pants, a black vest lightly resting on his slender frame. Sorry about this, Jinshin. I'll escort her off the premises. I think this is the reason Kurigane is never around. Shirogane, let me go this instant. I need to determine if she is acceptable as bride for my son. I said, let me go, loudly complained the older Kanasahai, flailing her arms in protest as she was dragged away by her brother-in-law. The sheer manner of her behavior was really similar to Jinshin when he was dragged away by Hitaru earlier. I think it's a simple misunderstanding, but if you must do it after school. You've been warned about this before. No matchmaking during school hours. I hate that Kurigane is never around to deal with your behavior, was the stern comment from. Let me go. I'm actively considering becoming a rogue ninja, but she would probably track me down and force me to marry someone. Jinshin said as he proceeded to complain, as he just fell back and laid on the floor, just giving up on life in general, as he wearily said, I'm just gonna lay here until mom forgets I exist. Oh, it's okay, Jinchan. It's not like you have to pick the clan believes in polygamy after all. That isn't helping YUUNE. Why should I go through with that if I don't feel anything for the women? Who do I look like? A generic harem protagonist. I should be a light novel harem protagonist, damn it. I don't want to be one of those shallow protagonists who ignores the more true loves. But mom picked out Madoka because you two get along so well. Wasn't she your first low dash? Began the puppet mistress as she proceeded to tease her. As she would put it, adorable baby brother. Of course, she wasn't allowed to finish that sentence. The very moment Yahasu started to talk of Madoka triggered Jinshin's face to turn red as a strawberry. He hopped to his feet and pointed to Yahasu as he loudly said, T that. I got work to do in the student council room. Key. It's always cute when he gets flustered, chimed Yahasu, amused with the way he became so embarrassed he stormed out of the lunchroom. Watching as he hastily ran away, Sakura tilted her head, trying to make sense of the situation before turning to her teacher and asked, Wait, polygamy? And who's Madoka? Hee. That first one is kind of complicated. I think he needs to be the one to explain it to you. As for who Madoka is, she's over there. There's a legitimate reason he went from hateful lunatic to a decent person. And it's her, explained Yahasu as she directed Sakura's attention to a girl across the cafeteria. There she stood, a sophisticated beauty among the second-year students. Her long ash-brown hair would have normally fallen down to the middle of her back, but the length was neatly styled. Her long hair elegantly framed the sides of her slender face. Her hair was parted evenly down the middle. With her bangs combed to the sides, the length in the back was beautifully woven into braids that looped around twice, before they were tied off into twin tails that gently rested over either shoulder. She dressed with white, a sleeveless dress shirt and red plaid skirt, with a pair of white knee socks. Her features were almost serene. Even the color of her eyes, they were pale blue, like a clear sky on a peaceful day. She lived up to her name, Madoka, tranquil. There are two incarnations to Senpai, the idiotic fool I met, and the darker one who went as far to break someone's arm for getting on his wrong side. And the one who knows which is the real Jinshin is her. The more I learn about him, the more I wonder if he isn't putting on a brave face like Naruto, when in truth, he's as broken as Sasuke-kun. Thought Sakura as she got a good look at Madoka, She was unsure what to think now since she was starting to get familiar with Jinshin. But now there were two images of the boy in her mind. The charming clown she met that morning and the herald of war that wrought disorder upon the campus a year ago. And then there was the aspect of the maidenly Madoka and how she somehow changed him. Something about her just made Sakura feel inadequate. It wasn't because Madoka had a bigger bust, but rather the thought that she could change Jinshin from a depraved madman into someone that actually tried to not fight. She began to think to herself, what kind of woman is she? Is she so strict that she scared him into submission? No, she isn't strict, she scared him into submission. Yes, I know why we're thinking. Everyone thinks that, but truth is, that girl, she truly loves Jinshin. She loves him enough to save him from himself. Casually, and with a faint smile, Yahasu explained as she stood up to leave, and coolly said, try not to be late for class. Lunch is almost over. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all are enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to support author of this fanfic. So let's end this video here. Until then, see you in next video.